AI is everywhere, and tools like large language models or LLMs can be really useful, but they also have risks and limitations, and you are the one who is accountable for how they're used. This video is the second in a series on how to use AI responsibly for scientific and medical writing. Last week, I shared some key risks and limitations to consider, and in this video, I'll walk you through some best practices so you can confidently and responsibly use these tools for your own work. And if we haven't met, hello, my name is Crystal Heron. I'm a trained biomedical scientist turned clinical researcher and now scientific and medical editor. And since 2011, I've helped scientists, clinicians, and medical communicators write with intention, clarity, and confidence. So before I get into the best practices, I have a quick disclaimer. I'm not going to share my thoughts on different tools or how to use them or how to develop prompts. There are plenty of other channels that cover specific tools and prompts and such. But I will share some best practices or things to keep in mind no matter what tool you use. So last week, I talked about risks, limitations, and implications of using AI tools or LLMs for your writing. And if you missed that video, I'll add a link to the description box. But as a really quick summary, I discussed the topics of privacy, hallucinations, cherry picking, mimicking the literature, critical thinking, diminishing writing and thinking skills, and consciousness and empathy. Now, to manage these risks and limitations and implications, this is where you come in. As the human using the tool, you are responsible for these things. And you are the person who can be held accountable for the text or other materials that these tools generate, not AI. So I'm going to share 5 overarching factors that you need to keep in mind to ensure that you are using AI responsibly in a way that you can feel confident about being held accountable for using them. And the first factor is to know the policies that you need to adhere to. For example, the NIH does not allow substantive use of AI. Now, substantive use is a little open to interpretation, but nonetheless, that is their policy. Many journals allow the use of AI as long as you disclose it. And I talked about this in a previous video, and I'll add a link to that in the description box in case you want to check it out. Now, you might also work for an organization that has a policy about using AI or what tools can be used or how they can be used. So be sure to check to see if your organization has any of these policies. And if they don't, now is a great time to develop one. AI is here to stay, and policies make it clear what tools can be used and how they can be used. And when I talk about how, this includes not just the tool, but also what you are allowed to input. And I'll get into this more in a bit. Now, in addition to institutional policies, it's important to know laws and regulations. So be sure that you are complying with any federal, state, or local laws. Also, AI tools are rapidly evolving, so be sure to stay up to date with policies and laws and to keep policies up to date as changes happen. Now, the second factor to keep in mind is to scrutinize the tool. You want to ensure that the tool supports what you need in a safe and secure way. And this means reading the terms of use and the privacy policy very carefully. Also, you need to understand that there are different types of tools with different tiers of access and security. So if you use consumer tools like ChatGPT or Claude, you can purchase access by tiers. Now, the free version might be tempting to save some money, but the free tiers and tools are not safe. If you're not paying with your money, you are likely paying with your data. So read the terms very carefully and only use the tools if you have explicit permission to do so. Now, you might also have access to enterprise tools, such as something created by your institution or licensed by another organization. And these tools might be safer But as I've said already, be sure to read the terms of use, the privacy policies, and any institutional policies. You want to feel confident about using these tools. Also, AI tools are rapidly evolving, so be sure to periodically review the terms of use and privacy policies for any tools that you are using. Now, the third factor that you want to keep in mind is to protect the input. Be careful about what you are inputting into AI, whether it's a prompt, data, documents, or something else. Know who or what has access to that information. Read the terms carefully to know how your inputs will be used. For example, will they be used to train new models? And remember, if you are not paying with your money, you are likely paying with your data. Now, you also want to ensure that you are not violating copyrights or infringing on intellectual property with anything that you input. And if you're working with confidential or proprietary information, only input this information into approved AI systems that are private or closed. And be sure to obtain consent if you are inputting data or identifiable details about people. For example, be careful to avoid inputting protected health information, or PHI, or personally identifiable information, or PII. Only do this if the AI tools meet organizational, legal, and ethical requirements for data privacy. Now, in some cases, you might be able to input de-identified details, but be sure to know the policies and scrutinize the tool to ensure that the details cannot somehow be re-identified. And of course, don't enter or store sensitive information in public or non-secure AI platforms. Do everything you can to protect the input. Now, the fourth factor is to validate the output. So last week I talked about how AI can hallucinate and cherry pick information. So you need to do some serious due diligence to check the details. You need to ensure that the text is accurate, sound, and reflects what you know to be true. You need to track down sources to ensure their accuracy and credibility, and that you agree with whatever AI pulled from that source. Also, keep in mind that AI-generated text can sound convincingly confident about false details, such as saying something definitively causes something when it might be a correlation. And AI tools cannot be held accountable. So this is where your expertise, experience, judgment, discernment, and critical thinking are so important. You also need to ensure that the story, content, structure, and language are appropriate for the specific audience that you intend to reach and the context in which your writing will reach them. Remember that AI isn't a storyteller. And although it can emulate feelings, it does not have feelings. So this is where your experience, consciousness, and empathy are so valuable. And keep in mind that AI also mimics what it learns from. So if it's learning from the literature, which is plagued with poor writing, then it will generate poor writing. And if you want to hone your skills and develop your ability to discern good and bad writing that AI generates, you might consider checking out my Scientific Writing Simplified course in the Red Ink Academy. You'll get all the skills you need to take AI-generated text and turn it into clear, persuasive writing that reflects you and your important work. We have lots of incredible success stories. I'll add a link to the description box in case you want to check it out. So when you are using AI tools, you need to validate the output and feel confident in being the person who is accountable for the work. And that also means that you need to be able to defend your use of AI, which brings me to the fifth factor: document the workflow. You need to be transparent about your use of AI. And actually, a study came out recently that mentioned how more researchers use AI than actually report it, which means they are hiding it. And there are a whole host of reasons that might contribute to this that I won't get into, but I'll add a link to that article in the description box in case you want to check it out. So you need to be transparent and disclose your use of AI. And you don't want to just say something vague like AI was used for developing or writing the text. You need to include the name and version of the tool, when you used it, and for what purpose. And you even need to include who reviewed the output. So the name of the qualified individual with relevant expertise who did a deep review, not just a quick glance. Also, your process needs to be repeatable and auditable, just like experiments that you would document in a lab notebook. So to do this, I recommend keeping a log. And some people have asked me, well, how detailed should this log be? I recommend erring on the side of caution and being meticulous with how you are logging your use of AI, including saving the prompts, the inputs, and the outputs of your interactions with the AI tools. And to help you, I created a tool that you can download for free. And in the tool, which is in Excel, so it's widely accessible, you can track what tool you used, including the version. You can track when you use the tool, including the date and even the time that you use the tool. You can also track what your purpose was for using the tool. For example, did you use it for outlining, data analysis, drafting, or refining? You can also track the inputs, so the data and the prompts, and the outputs, so whatever the outputs were from the tool. And you may need to save these in a separate file, but you can also indicate where they were stored with the file name, and that is in the template as well. And then you can also indicate that the outputs were verified by a human, and this can be a checkbox if it's you, or you can include the name of the qualified person who did the review, and even the date that they reviewed it. So if you're interested in that log template, check out the link in the description box, and you can download it for free, and it's completely customizable for your needs. And if you are already logging your use, I hope that you'll share your process in the comments below. You might inspire someone to adopt your process if it works better for them. Now, I know that this logging might sound like a lot of work, but it is really important to track these things. And just like a lab notebook, it's an auditable record that can be reviewed if any issues arise. And because you're the person who will be held accountable, it's well worth the effort. And once you have a system down, it will just become a fluid part of the process or your workflow. So I've shared 5 factors to keep in mind when you are using AI for your writing. Know the policies, scrutinize the tool, protect the input, validate the output, and document the workflow. And these factors will help you use AI responsibly, manage risks and limitations, and feel confident in being the accountable user of these tools. Now, in this video, and the one that I shared last week, I told you a lot about the risks, limitations, implications, and best practices for using AI for your scientific and medical writing. In the next 2 videos in this series, I'm going to do more than tell you. I'm going to go head to head with an AI editing tool to show you what AI tools can and can't do, and show you the value of humans in the writing process. So be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you in the next video.